Okay, Michelle, can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Thanks for joining
Hey,
us. Thanks for
Michelle.
taking notes. I was going to say before we get started, and we're going to talk about Apple Business Manager today, and what that means and what it takes to get that going. But I just wanted to have a quick conversation about how everyone's doing. I know Michelle and I live downtown. Chad, you're nearby, and we've had quite a weekend here in Chicago. Um, I think every block, every window on our block was smashed, almost every window, and things were destroyed. No fires, but just breaking things and stealing things. And everyone that I know of is safe, but it was a little concerning. And right now, the city is the quietest I've ever seen it because there are no CTA running. There's no train. There's no bus. Very little traffic. They've raised all the bridges. I think there are only a couple ways into the city, in and out of the city, and those are being monitored. So crazy, crazy times. How are you guys doing?
Steady as she goes. I mean, in Evanston, it's a little less, it's a little bit removed from that. At least not the protesting side. We've done our protests here and peacefully, but we haven't had we had a couple incidents. In fact, I rode my bike to the Walgreens on Sunday to pick up a few things, and quickly turned around and went home because tensions were high. I kind of showed up in the middle of something. I don't know exactly what
Mm.
it was, but it was something that was escalating. There were some people standing outside the Walgreens wanting to, confront some people who were inside the Walgreens. I still don't really know the details of that, but it was tense. And, as soon as I set my bike against the wall, started to lock it up, I was like, no, I think I'm going to just leave and I'll come back in an hour or so. So, I mean, there's probably, and probably rightfully so, not a place in the country that, shouldn't be, seeking justice for George Floyd. But when it gets violent, it's a totally different focus,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
the daytime protesters in support of what's going on, that's all great and fine. It's just at night it turns a little crazy here, or has been. Michelle, how's your neighborhood? Oh, I'll unmute you, Michelle. Thought I did, but let's see. Unmute. Michelle, uh,
There
you're
we go. Yeah, it's like I can't unmute myself. It's just eerily quiet down here. There's no cars and a lot of people walking around, but all you hear is helicopters and sirens. So,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Okay, well, I know tomorrow we're going to record our podcast, so I'm sure we'll talk more about this during the podcast. I just wanted to address it so everyone knows if we're a little distracted, maybe that's why. And let's get into this. So, Apple Business Manager, if you haven't heard about it, it's something that has been around under different names for a few years. It was originally called DEP, Device Enrollment Program, and there's one for school and there's one for business. And they have now consolidated DEP and what was VPP, Volume Purchasing Program, for both schools and businesses. They've consolidated it, Apple has, under one app called Business Manager, or Apple Business Manager. And this is the login for Apple Business Manager. business.apple.com is the URL. And I encourage all of our clients, if you cannot log into this page, if you do not have an account for Apple Business Manager, please go down here to Enroll Now and complete the registration process. It's free, and it will provide you with the Apple Business Manager account, which we're going to talk about a little bit. What you need to enroll is a DUNS number, a Dun and Bradstreet. I don't know if DUNS stands for anything. Does anyone know? But anyway, it's every business, registered business, has a DUNS number, and you do need that. You can look it up if you don't know what it is. A lot of people may not know what it is. I'm sure I had to look ours up when I originally signed up. And you basically fill out the details. Apple verifies that you are the business you say you are, and you own the business. You have the right to have a business account, and then they'll get this spun up for you. Now, the reason we're interested in it is it's going to help you as an organization better manage your devices, your corporate Apple IDs, and your apps that are purchased through the App Store. So I encourage you all to get this account, and once you have that account, let us know so we can help you with the next steps. In relation to the Apple Business Manager, Apple also offers something called a custom Apple Store. And this is at ecommerce.apple.com. And once again, if you have the login for ecommerce.apple.com, please let us know that you have that. And if you don't, you can also let us know, and we'll help you set one up. We'll help you set one up through your local Apple Store. And Michelle has set up a lot of these, so she knows the process better than I do. But in general, what Apple's doing is they're giving you your own store so that you can go and buy things that are directly attached to your organization. And what happens is that custom Apple store gets attached or linked to your Apple Business Manager. So everything you buy through Apple automatically gets attached to your Apple Business Manager. And that's very important because that means you have a certain level of authority to manage those devices. Now, if for whatever reason you do not purchase through Apple, maybe you have other reasons to go, say, from CDW, purchase from CDW or some other reseller, you can also get that reseller attached to your Apple Business Manager. It takes a little bit more effort, but it's certainly something we can help you with. It's just a matter of getting the reseller code and getting it attached to your business manager. The other great thing about that custom store is we can get access to that store as a, what do they call it, Michelle? We're authorized to recommend things. We can't purchase anything. We can't hit the buy button, but we can create templates and suggested packages, recommended systems. And so I don't actually have any here. This is our store. I haven't created any. We don't take care of ourselves as well as we take care of our clients. So what's that? The shoemaker's children story. So anyway, we can help you build out your custom store to make it more beneficial and streamlined for you. If you buy somewhere else, that works too. Just let us know. So once you've purchased through an authorized channel, whether it's Apple or whether it's through a third party, and your devices start showing up in your Apple Business Manager, and I can't actually show you this for privacy reasons, anyone's store, or even our store or Business Manager, but we can go to Apple's public-facing page and kind of walk you through some of this. So once your devices start showing up there, the last step is to link those devices to a mobile device management system, an MDM system. And I'm going to scroll down quite a bit here and skip some of the stuff we'll come back to later. So it does require an MDM solution, and for many years we used Jamf. We have since switched to Adigy. There are some others here that you might recognize. Microsoft has a piece that works with this. But basically in our solution, we're going to link our MDM Adigy to your Apple Business Manager, and we're going to manage your devices out of the box, which is the next level of implementation. Today, if you buy a computer, you have to manually enroll that computer into the management system. And when you do so, you still have to click some boxes and do some extra authorizations. And even after you've done all that, there are certain features that we still cannot offer you unless we go to that next level. And this is the next level. This is a fully supervised, managed machine as far as Apple is concerned. And what that means is, if I go up here, when an Apple device is supervised, and it can only be supervised if it goes through this process of buying through an authorized reseller or Apple, linked to an Apple Business Manager, which is linked to MDM. If all three of those are in place and working, then you get what's called a supervised device. And a supervised device allows you to do things that you simply cannot do otherwise. For example, place a device in lost mode, force Wi-Fi on. They have a bunch of examples here. And this is constantly changing based on Apple's upgrades and updates and the technology and the needs of customers. So what they're showing today could change with the next OS update or the next, MDM update. There's a lot of change that goes on. Now, they've also improved an aspect that you may have heard about over the years, and that's called BYOD, bring your own device. This is called user enrollment, and this is really meant for those devices that you personally own, but you want to use at work. So a lot of us have phones that we purchased, we bought, these are ours. We don't want the company to manage them, but we want to get access to some of the business apps and messages and maybe email from these devices. So that's where user enrollment comes in. And user enrollment allows a user to enroll their device outside of the system, and allows the organization to do some things, but not others. Meaning, I can provide you access to company data, but I cannot require you to change your passcode. I may require you to meet certain password criteria to get to your email, but I cannot do anything. I cannot enforce anything on your password. I cannot access your device location. I do not know where that device lives. And of course, I cannot remotely wipe it. I can remotely wipe the company email that I've authorized for you to have, but I cannot wipe the device. And that was something that back in the old BYOD days was a real problem. Is the only way for a company to manage a device was to have full control and the possibility of wiping it. So this is a really nice way of balancing the needs of the organization with the privacy and security of the individual. And this is a huge step forward for Apple. And for anyone who wants to have a more secure device that works well with their organization. Flipping back to device enrollment, one of the things I don't think I stressed enough was the great thing about this is you can purchase a computer or any device online. You can ship it anywhere in the United States. And there's a reason why going overseas is a little different, but anywhere in the United States. And that person can receive that device, pull it out of the box, and it's automatically supervised by your organization. There's nothing they need to do. There's nothing they need to enroll. There aren't check boxes they need to agree to. That is an organizational device that is given to an individual for them to use for work. And with that comes the security that the organization needs. So there is a lot more to this, and I certainly don't want to get into all the pages and pages of details or into the weeds of exactly how this works, but this is the basic concept. And this is where we're trying to get all of our clients to that point where they can buy, especially during this time where we're all dispersed, we're all working from home, we're not all in the office together. For you to be able to buy your organization a device, send it to any employee or team member, and have them out of the box, have that secured and ready to go. And then we can once it's activated, we can layer on top of that custom software that you need in your organization, the custom policies that you need for maybe better security, like file vault or password criteria. So there are lots of things we can do, and that's often changing. So that was a long, nonstop, one breath overview of this. So far, Chad, Michelle, are there any questions that we should clarify or address? And I have some more things I can talk about too. You can't unmute. Let me unmute you. Guys, I apologize. I think I must have clicked something. Can you hear me now? Yeah. I think I took away your ability to unmute yourself, and I don't know how to go back to that right now. Let me see. Here we go. Mute participants on entry. Allow participants to unmute themselves. Fixed. That is now fixed. Okay.
Cool. I'm going to pretend that I'm a client that's new to all this. And I imagine some of the questions that I might have would be, does this work for any kind of device, Apple device, or just specific devices?
Yeah, it's a good question. Of course, any new device, purchased through this process, it will work with. It will work with a Mac, iPhone, iPad, even Apple TVs. I think, does Apple still make iPod Touches? I think it even works with iPod Touches if they still make them. I know at one
point. They were great.
Yeah. So yeah, it will not work with an Apple Watch. You cannot currently manage an Apple Watch. But I think everything else, every Mac OS, iOS, or iPad OS can all be managed.
It doesn't work for the Apple Watch. So if I have an employee, say that I'm a leader of an organization, and I have an employee that wants to check their work mail on their watch, is that a no-go?
It's a good question. I mean, if you've authorized the email on the device, whether it's an iPad, iPhone, or, well, I guess it would be an iPhone in this case. I think you always pair a watch to an iPhone. As long as the iPhone is authorized,
then the watch is authorized.
The watch should be authorized, unless there's some option either today or in the future for an organization to say, I'm going to authorize email on your device, but I'm not going to authorize pairing with any other device like an Apple Watch. That could be an option that I just don't know.
And that's why I brought it up, because I think that's a tricky one for a lot of folks. It comes up every now and then. It's like there really isn't anything in place to enforce that. It would have to be really just kind of an honor system that you're not going to, if someone's using a BYOD, bringing their own device, it's a BYOD kind of scenario. A lot of it's just trust. I mean, you can have policies and a lot of other things, but in the case of like an iWatch, it's really almost a case-by-case basis, I would say. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, let's look, Michelle, let's make a note that we're going to find out what the options are, if there are any at all, to control whether someone can pair with an Apple Watch. I do know there are the ability to do some things like prohibit how email is opened, copied, forwarded, like restrict some of that so you cannot, extract that data very easily.
That's great,
I'm sure, Chad, we all know there are ways to hack through a lot of this stuff, but sometimes it's just a matter of making it more difficult. And sometimes it's a protective bumpers for all of us, so we don't accidentally,
It is, yeah. That's a really important point. Yeah. And there are, I mean, someone could take a screenshot of an email right? I mean, it's important to keep in mind that technology can help, but the solution usually it comes down to people and relationships and communication and all that stuff, that we're kind of in the midst of right now, is respecting all kinds of people and all different ways of life. And I think this is probably a nice way to reiterate that it's any tool can be, any security tool in particular can be worked around, and it's easy to rely on them, to rely on the technology, but it still requires relationships and like conversations and all those parts that are harder to quantify for sure.
So one of the other things I wanted to mention is the benefit of having the Apple Business Manager is that you can start to distribute apps and books throughout your company. Meaning today, without this system, if I wanted everyone to have a certain app, I might have to ask you, could you please go either download this app or in some cases buy this app, and then I will reimburse you. But in that situation, you own the app. Like even if I reimburse you, it's technically tied to whatever Apple ID you used to download that app, or even that iBook if it's a book, or I think you can distribute PDFs through this as well. But through this program, I could, as an organization, acquire that app, whether it's free or paid, and I could distribute it through the devices that are managed by the organization without requiring an Apple ID. So that's a much cleaner process for an organization who needs to get content or apps out to their employees.
Especially for the onboarding thing, right? Like everyone's started a new job, and you get your stuff and you got all the schwack you got to do, paperwork and, meetings and stuff. It's nice to be able to sit down at your workstation and just, like everything's styled out and it's there and it's ready to roll. And so that probably makes things a really nice experience for a lot of people.
Right. I mean, Apple IDs right now, the state that they're in, are confusing and frustrating for everyone when it comes to the business. Most of us understand it in the personal world. If we want to get an app, we log into the App Store using our Apple ID. We download it or pay for it or use it. But when it comes to businesses, it has been frustrating and confusing. So Apple does now, with Apple Business Manager, allow us to have what they call managed Apple IDs. And I'm sure it's somewhere on this page. Let's see. Well, just a summary. Yeah, so 2 Apple IDs, 1 device. In all these situations, it does allow you to have your personal Apple ID on your device and your corporate Apple ID on your device. And that's really new to Apple, the idea of having multiple Apple IDs on a single device. To be honest with you, it can still be confusing. There's one feature of iCloud where I should technically be able to see my personal iCloud drive and my corporate iCloud drive on a single device. But I recently tried to test that and cannot get that to work. So there are some little, rough edges around this, but I'm sure Apple will work those out, and eventually we will get there. But once again, the concept is whether you bring your own device or you are given a company corporate-owned managed device, is you could have your personal Apple ID that the corporation cannot touch, and then you have your corporate managed Apple ID, which is totally controlled by the organization, where they can give you apps, and of course they can take those apps away for security reasons or protection reasons.
And that's really important for, workforce, teammates, because if you have teammates that are using personal devices, I mean, let's face it, in a perfect world, we would have perfect separation of church and state, right? We would have our work devices and our play devices, but that's just not how things work. We
Right.
do work, do life and work on one device. A lot of us, it's not unusual at all. And the MDM stuff is a great solution to say, maybe you have a contractor who's using a personal device, but you want to give them access to email. That MDM helps manage just that email piece. And when they're done working for you, you can withdraw that. And it's great for, compliance and security stuff that your clients are probably going to ask for. So that's a pretty good value with that piece of it for sure.
Yeah, and so there is an area here on managed Apple IDs for employees, and related to that is what they call federation, and they currently federate with Office 365 or Microsoft Azure Active Directory authentication. I'm sure they will add other authentication options in the future, but today it's Office 365 or Microsoft Azure. And we've tested this. It does work, and basically it allows you as an organization, in our example, forgetcomputers.com, we own that domain. We've proven to Apple that we own it, and we've federated our Apple Business Manager account with our Office 365 account. And what that means is our managed Apple IDs, when our team logs in to use their managed Apple ID, they actually authenticate using our Office 365 account, our email, username, and password, and which also has 2-factor and some other security methods on it. But the idea is you're simplifying the process for your employees, so they don't have to totally know the login for their managed Apple ID and their corporate email. They just need to know their corporate email, and then the organization can provide access or take away access. And that's really what management is, right, Chad? The ability to either give something or take something back, or in the case of an audit, or just proving, trust but verify that you're doing everything correctly, to be able to run some reports periodically and say, well, yes, we have done our best to secure this data or these devices.
Yeah, single sign-on is a huge value to the usability side of security, which is a constant battle, right? I mean, we're always trying to make things more secure, but we all know that security is not convenient. It's impossible to have them both. It would be nice, right? But we tend to trade our security for convenience. And something that single sign-on, or SSO for short, is really handy for is helping folks use a login that's really protected, like generally their Office 365 login would be really protected. It would have long, password rules and, two-factor authentication on that. And that's a really pretty decent level of security. So it's using that, plus it's one less username and password that someone has to remember for something additional. So when they get good at using, one login, single sign-on just lets them use that across different services. And so it's a much better experience. And we find if the experience is really good for people, then they tend to work around good security controls less.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So yeah, it's a good thing. Very good thing.
Yeah, and Apple does talk about that as well. So single sign-on. So the three combined, the managed Apple IDs, the federation with Microsoft, and then the single sign-on all kind of work together. I mean, all this stuff works together, and this is where it's a simplification, but it also can be a little confusing because there are so many pieces that all have to come together before this really works. And what we've been doing more aggressively this year, but over the past, I would say 6 to 12 months, is just trying to get our clients closer to this ideal. Getting them set up with a custom Apple store, getting them set up with an Apple Business Manager, testing the federation of those Apple IDs, and understanding how we're going to get our clients to do their own federation. And then, eventually, today we are taking computers or devices out of the box, and they're already enrolled. And that's really cool because we've been trying to get there for it feels like forever, and it's finally working. And then the next step is getting the apps implemented and taking full advantage of the managed Apple IDs. All of this stuff, every client is going to be at a different space in this process. And if you're ready to go there sooner rather than later, let us know so we can help you, because it does require communication and coordination. We can't just do all this in the background and it just magically works. There's definitely some things that have to be communicated, and your team has to be involved to understand what that means. Especially with the BYOD stuff, but certainly with Apple managed Apple IDs and really everything. So as our primary contact watching this video, if you're not familiar with any of this or it doesn't make any sense, reach out to us. Or if you've started going down this road and you're not sure where you are and where you need to be, just let us know so we can help you.
Yeah, don't feel like there are no silly questions. We're all, and Apple changes this a lot. So we're constantly, like, they just sent out a new terms of service. I think everybody has to sign it by the 16th of this month. So, I mean, there's occasionally changes to this, and we're all constantly learning together. So don't be hesitant to reach out to us if you're uncertain about something.
So I think that's as much as I wanted to cover for now. We'll include these links in the write-up, basically showing the more information. But the basic concepts are: let us know if you don't already have a custom store or Apple Business Manager, so we can help you get there. Anything else we should mention before we go, Michelle or Chad?
And stay safe out there.
Yeah, and it's hot today, 85 degrees.
It's supposed to set a record. We'll see.
Oh, really? A record, like 90 degrees? Or?
Yeah, it's supposed to get up to 90. So
yeah.
We'll see.
Record for this time of year?
Yeah, for this date.
Oh, for this date, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us either today or watching later, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.